At Be-sup, it has become a tradition to provide our members 2 times a year with an in-depth update on regulatory developments and key files at both European and Belgian level. So welcome, and let me introduce our team for today's session. I'm Valérie Verkammer, Director General of Be-sup, and joining me are my 2 esteemed colleagues, Linda van Steenwinkel, our Scientific Director, and Ulrike van den Houten, our Director of Communications and Regulatory Affairs. Together we will guide you through this session, and we hope you find today's contents valuable and insightful. Let me show you the agenda for the afternoon. We will start with the most important European topics of this moment, and then continue with the Belgian topics and end with a Q&A session. So feel free to ask all your questions using the chat. I will now give the floor to Ulrike for the first European topic, the very important file of harmonization of maximum levels of vitamins and minerals. Ulrike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Valerie, and hello, everyone. And indeed, our first important topic is the harmonization of the maximum levels for vitamins and minerals. So what is the situation and what can we expect? But first of all, let's take a look at the previous steps. So the process is based on Article 5 of the Food Supplements Directive, as you know, number 2002/46, which calls for harmonized rules on the maximum levels of vitamins and minerals across the European Union. And to move this forward, a task force was set up involving several member states, including Belgium. Also, the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, had been mandated to reassess the tolerable upper intake levels, so the ULs, for vitamins and minerals to ensure consumer safety. And this work has been finished since last year. Several meetings were then scheduled throughout 2024 to discuss the scientific assessments and the regulatory approach. But despite these meetings, there was no concrete draft proposal that has been shared yet. And then, in the beginning of 2025, the information leaked that a draft regulatory proposal had been shared with the member states. And this proposal presented a methodology that was defined and a groundwork for harmonized maximum levels across Europe. And it gave also concrete maximum level values for vitamins and minerals. And feedback from the member states was asked about this proposal. But unfortunately, we must say that it is really regrettable that there is a big lack of transparency in this process. Member states had been asked by the European Commission not to engage with stakeholders at this stage. So that is really regrettable, but we will come back on the proposal later during the slides. So to continue, after that, so EFSA had been mandated, and as I said, they completed the work. That was in August of last year. This work on the upper levels had been finished, as you can see here in the table. EFSA opinions have been published on copper, selenium, vitamin B6, vitamin D, folic acid, manganese, vitamin A, iron, and vitamin E. It was the upper levels that were set by EFSA. Just a remark on iron, because there were insufficient data to define this. Instead, safe intake levels were defined for the various target populations. So you can consult the EFSA opinions by clicking here on the links in the table. Of course, EHPM, our European Association, has also been working very hard on this top priority file. They worked on a model, and this model was based on a really important scientific methodology based on the upper levels, on the reference intakes, and of intake of vitamin and minerals from food from a really important national dietary service from the European member states. And in this model, as you can see here in the table, vitamins and minerals were divided in three groups. For group 1, there were no risks identified, and so no MPLs had been proposed. And just to be clear, MPL, that's for maximum permitted level of vitamins and minerals in food supplements. So it's the highest intake determined to be safe for consumers for a long-term daily intake. So for group 1, no risk. For group 2, that's the group with a low risk. Their MPLs have been proposed. And then group 3, that's a group of minerals where a higher risk is identified for particular groups. And so MPLs also have been proposed. Then 2 levels were determined. Adults and children being from 4 to 10 years. So the adult categories was from 11 years on. And you have the link to this work, to this model that was published in 2021, if you click here on the image on the slides. And this EHPM model, it has been presented to DG Sante, that's the Directorate General for Health and Food Safety of the European Commission, and also 6 national authorities, including Belgium, but also Greece, Ireland, Italy, Netherlands, and Portugal. And then recently, a big and constructive work has been done to align the EHPM model and the FSE model. FSE is the other European Association for Food Supplements. It's Food Supplements Europe. And these 2 European associations work together to aim for a unified voice within the EU industry. Okay, so I just wanted to explain here the proposals that had been done yet and the efforts of our industry. So you might have heard already or read in our previous communications that the first proposal was very restrictive. It was even more restrictive than the BFR model, so the German model. They are always very severe. And this model presented very low maximum levels. Then advocacy actions have been undertaken by EHPM, by Be-sup also, and by our other sister associations across the European Union. And letters had been sent to the members of the European Parliament to express our concerns and requests. And those included the fact that there were no safety concerns to justify a rush decision. Also the lack of transparency in the process. Also that we have a well-functional national approaches among different countries and that these approaches should be taken into account. The need to conduct an impact assessment was stressed, and then also we highlighted that consumers will be impacted negatively by a too restrictive approach. So as a result of all these efforts, a second, somewhat improved proposal had been put forward, so it went in the right direction. And then, as I said recently, there was a leaked draft beginning of this year, and this showed, on one hand, some good maximum values for some vitamins and minerals, but still some very low ones and problematic values for others. So let me give you some more information about the proposed methodology that was explained in the document that was leaked, but this was also presented at a Euroforum conference on food supplements in November 2024. That was done by the German BFLM, that's the Federal Institute for Food and Nutrition in Germany, and they presented the methodology that is being considered for setting the maximum levels. And this approach is based on a simple formula, so it's R equals UL minus P95. And so UL, as you know, stands for the upper level, which is the maximum safe intake level as determined by EFSA. P95 refers to the 95th percentile nutrient intake from food. So in fact, it reflects the intake of people with the highest dietary consumption. And then the remaining value R, that's what left after subtracting food intake from the UL. And that remainder is then split equally between food supplements and fortified foods. So it's a 50-50 split. So what is the result then? Well, as I said, some values that are acceptable, that are even good, but also some very low values for several key nutrients, including zinc, iron, magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, and beta-carotene. And especially when we compare them to the current allowed maximum levels in Belgium under the Royal Decree, and also when we compare it to the already more balanced proposal as in the common model of EHPM and FSE. And it was also worrying to see that for certain minerals, like iron, for instance, well, the value is 0 for children, which completely denies the special needs of adolescent girls, for instance. But in fact, there are several critical concerns about the current draft proposal, so we listed them on this slide. First of all, the equal but unrealistic 50-50 split of the residual amount, the R value. So there's the 50-50 split between fortified foods and food supplements as a starting point, which means that there is not a lot remaining. And this split is arbitrary and it doesn't reflect the distribution numbers that are declared by the member states based on the available studies. And also it's not foreseen in the relevant European legislative texts. Then secondly, this proposal assumes that individuals consistently consume the maximum intake from all possible sources, from food, from fortified foods, and from supplements, over their entire lifespan. And this is really an unseen approach and an unrealistic assumption, and it doesn't reflect the actual dietary patterns. So that's very problematic. Then the impact of this worst case scenario, as we may call it, on vulnerable groups. That's also an issue. Groups like pregnant women, the older people, or people with specific medical needs, they have not been considered in this model. Also, EFSA's upper intake levels, they are being treated as absolute limits without considering the already built-in safety margins or the real-world variations in dietary intake. So this approach may lead to really unnecessary low limits. Another major issue is the assumption that intake levels suitable for children are also sufficient for adults. So age-specific needs are being ignored. And in fact, the maximum levels set for children aged 3 to 10 are being also applied to adolescents up to 18 years old, despite that they might have higher nutritional needs during growth and development. And although EFSA itself recognizes adolescents, the ages from 10 to 17, as a separate group with distinct requirements, this is not at all reflected in the proposal. Then another concern is the use of the P95 intake data from the country with the highest reported intakes that is used, rather than using an average across the European member states. This would be more logical. So this really skews the data and may lead to overly cautious limits. And then finally, the proposal fails to properly assess the quality, the robustness, and the representativeness of the underlying data across the European Union. So what were then the next steps? Well, first, there's the alignment between key industry associations. So they are mentioned here. Besides EHPM, our European Association, there's also Food Drinks Europe, Specialized Nutrition Europe, Food Supplements Europe, and ASGP, that is the Association of the European Self-Care Industry. And they have been working closely together to present a united front, because that seems very important in this file. And a common letter has been drafted and sent to the European Commission, and a meeting already took place in the beginning of March to discuss the overall industry concerns. And also a follow-up meeting has been requested to discuss the more technical concerns relating to the calculation model. Then another step is the economic impact assessment. EHPM and FSC are conducting this assessment to show how these proposed limits could affect the sector. And this is really important because the Commission confirmed that there will be no formal impact assessment carried out by them. Then one of the key goals will also be to convince the European Commission to reconsider the 50-50 split between fortified foods and supplements, because it doesn't reflect the reality. They already said that it would be very difficult to change it, but we have good arguments and we will try anyway. And we're also looking into specific nutrients where the proposed levels are clearly too low, like the ones mentioned before, zinc, iron, magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, and beta-carotene. These need to be addressed individually with strong scientific and regulatory arguments. So to end this topic, what is now the expected timeline and the developments? Well, the meeting that was originally planned for the 6th of March has been cancelled. This had been done following the meeting on the 4th of March between all the associations, as mentioned before, where a common industry position was defended. So in the light of this industry meeting, this meeting of the 6th of March was cancelled. And the next European level meeting is now scheduled for June of this year. And then a stakeholder consultation might be expected in the second half of 2025, since this meeting is in June. So, but it still needs to be officially confirmed, of course. At Belgian level, also Be-sup has raised concerns about the lack of transparency in the process, and this was done during the advisory board for food. And our concerns were supported by FEVIA, and particularly regarding fortified nutrition also. And in response to this, the Belgian authorities have committed to raise these concerns with the European Commission. So as a conclusion, it needs to be stressed that a breakthrough is really urgently needed in 2025 to ensure a workable and balanced approach, because you might know that in France, a review of national maximum levels was planned following the ANSES recommendations with really dramatic low maximum levels. And thanks to the great work of our sister association in France, SINADIET, this is currently on hold. But if no European proposal is presented by 2026, they said that in France that they will move ahead with this plan using the ANSES recommendations. And this could really have serious consequences, not only in France, but also potentially in Belgium and in other countries, because other authorities, like the Belgian authorities, often align with French positions. So it's really important that we have a breakthrough in this file this year. But we continue to monitor this very closely with the EHPM, and we will, of course, keep you informed of any evolution in this. So I will now give the floor to my colleague Linda for another crucial dossier.
Yes, hello. I will cover for you the Article 8 files. Article 8, as you know, is the safety procedure that is foreseen in the Regulation 1925-2006. There has been a very, how shall I say, important developments on HADs, hydroxyanthracene derivatives mainly. Let's first have a look at what the Article 8 procedure is. So it is a safety procedure that can be triggered if there are safety concerns with an ingredient, and it can be initiated, this procedure, by a member state or by the European Commission itself. There are in fact three regulatory options. The ingredient can be banned, then it is placed in Annex A of the regulation. The ingredient can be restricted. For example, maximum levels can be imposed. In that case, the ingredient is placed in Part B of Annex 3. And the ingredient can at the same time be placed under scrutiny. And then it is placed in Part C of the Annex. Normally, the industry has 24 months to prove the security by scientific studies, so safety studies of the concerned ingredient. And the European Commission has to make a decision within 4 years after the initiation of the procedure. So it can result in an authorization, a restriction, or a ban, and a scrutiny period. So until now, Article 8 has been used several times. It has been activated for monacolins in red yeast rice, for extracts of green tea that contain epigallocatechin galates, for hydroxyanthracene derivatives, like aloe species Rheum senna cassia, for alpha-lipoic acid, which is also ongoing, and for preparations of botanicals containing hydroxycitric acids, Garcinia, in that case, Garcinia cambogia, or Garcinia gumiguta, which is the official scientific name. The procedure of Article 8 has also been activated for botanicals containing berberine and for bitter and sweet fennel. So first of all, an issue that has caused serious trouble for our industry, so the Article 8 procedure for hydroxyanthracene derivatives, which resulted in March 2021 in a regulation that placed aloe amodin and all preparations in which aloe amodin is present, and amodin and all preparations in which amodin is present in Part A. So that's a complete ban. And also the preparations from the leaf of aloe species, Dantron, which is not naturally present in the plants. At the same time, in Part C, so placed under scrutiny, were preparations from the root or rhizome of Rheum palmatum, Rheum officinale, and their hybrids containing HADs. Preparations from the leaf or the fruit of cassia that contain hydroxyanthracene derivatives, and preparations from the bark of Rhamnus frangula and Rhamnus burchiana. So, Synadiat and Be-sup and several companies for which HAD-containing botanicals are very important, like Ortis, Forever Living, and Aboca. Sorry, I'm going back to the right slide. Several court cases have been held and that led to the annulment of the regulation. The legal basis for the annulment was a misapplication of Article 8. So there's a lack of evidence, we argued, on excessive intake. The European Commission has not proved that HADs lead to significantly high intake levels under normal conditions. A public health risk has not been demonstrated. In the 2017 EFSA opinion, no risk to public health under normal consumption was identified. So the key arguments were paragraphs 78 and 79 of the judgment, and it can be cited against national recall orders for HAD-containing products. But what happened after the European Court issued its judgments and the annulments? Let's go to the next slide. The European Commission unfortunately appealed against the HAD case. What is very important to keep in mind is that this annulment is suspended by the appeal of the European Commission. So there have been 4 rulings. The European Commission has lodged an appeal against all 4 rulings. So there was a Synodiat and Be-sup case. That was the first, and 3 other court cases by Ortiz, by Forever Living, and by Apoca. So suspension pending the ruling of the Court of Justice on the appeal of the European Commission. I think, yeah, okay, I think we can go further. So, in fact, there is a strategic intention of the European Commission. They really use it as a strategic move. There are some regulatory proposals expected that are very important, like the alpha lipoic acid case. I will come back to that in the next slide. The European Commission is expected to submit a regulatory proposal to ban HAD-containing preparations in Part C, so those that were placed under scrutiny, the rhubarb, for example. And by the end of 2025, EFSA is expected to publish safety opinions on several Article 8 dossiers. Berberine, for example, bitter and sweet fennel, and hydroxycitric acid-containing plants like Garcinia. These will be have been evaluated by EFSA by the end of this year. And there is also the HOA report, the report of the heads of agencies. The first phase Article 8 has been activated for 12 different botanicals and substances. They are in the early phase, in fact, of the procedure. So, in fact, the fact that we have won this court case is, of course, for the European Commission a very dangerous precedent if they want to go through with Article 8 restrictions for several ingredients. So an overview now of the other Article 8 files. You are all aware about the restriction on monacolins in red yeast rice. This was the regulation from 2022. So the amount of monacolins per day should be lower than 3 milligrams, and several warnings are needed on the label. The scrutiny periods ended on the 21st of June of last year. So there has been quite some effort delivered by EHPM to prove the safety of monacolins in red yeast rice. There has been a collaboration with the University of Bologna and 12 important companies in 3 countries, in Belgium, in Italy, and in the Netherlands, have united to provide safety data. These studies have been evaluated by EFSA, and unfortunately, on the 28th of February, beginning of this year, EFSA has issued a negative opinion. So now the European Commission has to decide before the 21st of June 2026. They have to make public their final decision. Will we see a confirmation of the existing situation? Will we see a ban? It's still a big question at this moment, but we will keep you informed, of course. Green tea extracts, you are also aware of, this was also in 2022 that the regulation has become effective. So, as you know, green tea extracts containing epigallocatechin gallate were placed in Part B of the regulation in the restricted substances. So the daily portion of such an extract should contain less than 800 milligrams of EGCG. And there are also additional requirements for the label, the number of portions of the food for daily consumption, a warning not to consume a daily amount of 800 milligrams of EGCG and or more. And the label should also mention the content of EGCG per portion of food. There are also obligatory warnings. So the product should not be consumed if you are consuming other products containing green tea on the same day. Should not be consumed by pregnant or lactating women and children below 18. And the product should not be contained on an empty stomach. An important remark is that aqueous green tea extracts that are reconstituted to beverages, that can be reconstituted to beverages, are excluded from the regulation. They have a derogation. So green tea extracts, there has been this scrutiny. The European Commission has to take its final decision before the 19th of December 2026. Alpha-lipoic acid, that's quite a history until now. It was Denmark that asked for the initiation of the Article 8 procedure in Europe. There has been an EFSA advice that was issued in June 2021. They could not establish a safe dose. There was one problem that was identified by EFSA, the possibility of an insulin autoimmune syndrome, IAS, which is also known as Hirata syndrome. It is extremely rare, this syndrome, in the European population. It is in fact mostly the Asian population in which genetic polymorphisms occur that make people susceptible to having IAS. So there has been quite some discussion between member states and the European Commission on the issue of alpha-lipoic acids. The latest was in fact that the European Commission proposed to place alpha-lipoic acids in Part A of the Annex 3. That is, they want to ban the use of alpha-lipoic acid in food and food supplements. Quite dangerous because Article 8 also means that once the regulation is in place, that there is no transitional period. In the latest phase, in fact, there were no objections from the member states. At a certain moment, Belgium was in favor of a more proportionate approach. Belgium, in fact, originally was of the opinion that warnings on the label, for example, could be sufficient to guarantee consumers' safety. But in the end, in fact, there were not really serious objections from the member states. So the timeline that was originally foreseen is as follows. In the first quarter of this year, there would be the inter-service consultation. In quarter two, there was the consultation technical barriers to trade, that's the whole procedure, and the vote in the SCOPAF. And then approval of the ban by the Commission would have been likely if no objections are raised. Then there is also in the procedure foreseen a period of 3 months in which the European Parliament has to look at the proposal, so under the EP scrutiny. And then, in fact, it was foreseen that the adoption by the European Commission should take place, of the proposal by the European Commission should take place in the last quarter of 2025. So, but is this going to happen? That's the question. So we have a very, very recent update for you. EHPM and Food Supplements Europe, the two main European industry associations, have joined together and issued letters of concern to DG Santé and DG Grow at the European Commission, in which they issue a plea and a firm rationale for proportionate measures instead of a full ban. And this was well received by the European Commission. So the inter-service consultation, which was planned for the first quarter of 2025, has not yet started as of today. So the European Commission promised that the member states will be consulted again. There is an important meeting on the 13th on the 13th of May between the European Commission and the member states. And we will, as soon as we have more news on the outcome of this meeting, we will inform the Be-sup members, of course. And of course, these letters jointly written by EHPM and Food Supplements Europe were also shared with the Belgian authorities in preparation of the meeting of May 13th. Also, for botanicals containing HCA, hydroxycitric acids, an Article 8 procedure is ongoing. In this case, the procedure was initiated by Spain. There has been a report, I think it was 2019 in Spain, by ASAN, which is in fact a food safety agency in Spain, which identified severe liver problems after intake of HCA and several other grave secondary effects. So the EFSA assessment at this moment is ongoing. Originally, their scientific opinion on the safety should have been published by the 15th of May, but they have asked for postponement, so the deadline for the EFSA opinion is now December 2025. Unfortunately, France has decided not to await the outcome of this long Article 8 procedure for Garcinia cambogia. Some of you may have read it or heard it. There has been a very negative opinion by the Food Safety Agency in France, ANSES, which has been published on the 5th of March, in which they identify again severe hepatic problems, psychiatric problems, and many other grave safety concerns. So France has immediately, after this very harsh ANSES opinion, has immediately issued a decree, an arrest, on the 15th of April, so very recently. It was published on the 17th of April. And so it came into effect a day after, on the 18th of April. The decree forbids the sale of food supplements with Garcinia cambogia. Article 1, in fact, of the decree says the importation, introduction, and placing on the market, free of charge or for payment, of food supplements containing the plant Garcinia cambogia, and all preparations derived from parts of this plant are suspended, and this is the trick, for a period of 1 year. In fact, we can suppose that this should be interpreted as at least 1 year, because of course another decree can prolong this ban of Garcinia cambogia in France. Also in Article 1, they say that given the acute risk posed by the consumption of these food supplements, the products mentioned in the previous paragraph, so that's the article that's Article 1 that goes back to the preambles in the decree. So given the acute risk, the products mentioned in the previous paragraph will be withdrawn from all spaces where they are found and recalled from consumers who hold them. So in fact, what is happening in France, this is a total recall. And the responsibility is, of course, with all the food business operators who bring Garcinia cambogia containing food supplements into the markets. So it is very difficult to foresee, in fact, how other EU member states will react to this measure that has been taken in France. There will be an impact, of course, also on the current Article 8 procedure that is going on for Garcinia and other HCA-containing botanicals. As it looks now, it is very probable that EFSA will indeed, in its opinion, that has to be issued in December 2025, that EFSA will confirm these health risks. So it's really not looking good for Garcinia cambogia at this moment. Berberine, the Article 8 procedure for berberine has been initiated by France. The EFSA assessment is also ongoing at this moment. The deadline originally was the 15th of May 2025, but they have also asked to postpone the deadline, and the deadline is now set at September 2025. The same situation for a sweet and bitter fennel. The Article 8 procedure has been asked by Germany. They had a big concern for because of the presence of estragol in fennel. The EFSA assessment is ongoing at this moment. The deadline originally foreseen for the 15th of May has also been postponed to December 2025. Okay. I will now give the floor to Valerie again. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Linda, for this very complete update. Thank you. And we received some questions. We will address them in the Q&A session. We remain in the sphere of the botanicals, and the negative attitude about botanicals, I must say, with the heads of agencies report. So who are the heads of agencies? Well, the heads of agencies are the heads of the safety agencies of the member states. In Belgium, for your information, it was not FAVV AFSCA that participated, but the Ministry of Health, so the SPF Santé Volksgezondheid, that was participating in that report. They collected a total of 117 substances based on suggestions from the member states themselves. So 65 substances were assumed novel, meaning they might not have a history of safe use before May 1997 and could require further assessment under the novel food rules. 49 substances and botanicals were assumed not novel, but seen as potentially risky for consumers, and 3 were already subject to Article 8, and they are monacolin K, aloe ferox, and aloe vera. In the first phase, the heads of agencies report identified substances in 2 main priority groups. On this slide, you can see the substances of the first priority. It includes 12 botanicals and substances that are already being looked at for regulatory action. This list contains some interesting botanicals like curcuma, Hypericum perforatum, maca, and also ashwagandha, Withania somnifera. For your information, you can see melatonin in the list, but the European Commission confirmed that melatonin will not be part of the first priority, as the heads of agencies are of the opinion that melatonin is already well regulated in different member states, like it is the case, for example, in Belgium. Priority 2 includes substances that raise significant concerns due to their hazard profile and might require a risk assessment before any decision on regulatory restrictions. This approach raises really concerns. It seems really disproportionate to move towards an Article 8 measure without robust data or a complete assessment of exposure and risk. We must be really cautious here, and you can also see on the list of this slide of the second priority that some interesting and popular botanicals like ginkgo biloba, for example, can be concerned. We are really worried about this totally disproportionate approach by the heads of agencies. A number of substances have already been reviewed. You can see them on the screen. Some substances are considered as safe. So this is the only positive thing in the report. Substances like N-acetylcysteine, backed by a risk assessment from the Dutch safety authority RIVM, but also Lavandula angustifolia, Mentha piperata, and the popular Morus alba, white mulberry, are considered as safe. For others, the one above, not enough information is available yet to make a clear decision. Let us look at the second phase, the focus on novel foods. The second phase of the heads of agencies report focuses on the novel food dimension. The list of potentially novel food substances will be forwarded to the working group on novel food. And the goal of the heads of agencies is to group the substances by category, to prioritize them based on how widespread they are on the market, to check their status in novel food catalog, and to allow member states to submit evidence of history of consumption before May 1997. From our side at Be-sup, we conducted an analysis and we concluded that the majority of botanicals that are classified as novel and that are part of the second phase are in fact botanicals that are currently forbidden in Belgium and also in other member states, or not yet formally recognized. And for the botanicals that are used, our colleagues from our Dutch sister association NPN have already gathered valuable evidence of history of consumption. So this could be a key point in the upcoming discussions. What are the next steps in the HOA report? So the European Commission has given EFSA a mandate to take a phased approach. EFSA will work on a slight different way than in the normal Article 8 files, I must say. So they will group substances into batches based on reported adverse events, and that's quite new. EFSA will also carry out a preliminary literature review to identify the key safety concerns. And once EFSA will have completed this initial phase, it will give a timeline for further assessment. And the European Commission will then be able to prepare the official mandate letters for the launch of Article 8. And those mandate letters are public, as you know, and once they will be, they will be available, we will be able to share them with you. This is an evolving process, and the outcome could significantly impact our sector. We feel really that there is a lot of pressure on botanicals, and that is why Be-sup is actively monitoring the situation. We contribute with evidence wherever it is possible, and we really ensure that our members' interests are represented. Of course, it's a pity that that the Commission went into appeal in the annulation of the HAD regulation before the European Court of Justice, because otherwise we would have been rid of the HOA report and all the Article 8 launches. So to be continued. Over to Ulrike again for a state of play of the working group, of our new Be-sup working group on the PPWR.
Yes, because we think it's really important to keep you updated also on this topic, the impact of it on our sector, and as Valerie said, the creation of our working group. So let's start with a brief recap of the context and the objectives. So about the context, so the PPWR is the Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation. It was proposed by the European Commission in November 2022, and it is set to replace the current or the previous Directive 94/62. Unlike a directive, this is a regulation, so it is legally binding in all member states without the need for national transposition. So it applies directly across the European Union. It introduces responsibility across the entire life cycle of packaging. So it's from design and production to disposal and recycling. And importantly, it applies to all types of packaging and all packaging waste. So it's regardless of material and sector. The main goal, that is to make packaging more sustainable. So the objectives, the PPWR's overarching purpose is to move the packaging sector towards circularity and climate neutrality by 2050. And the key objectives, they include preventing and reducing packaging waste by encouraging reuse and refill systems, ensure that all packaging on the EU market is recyclable in an economically viable way by 2030, increase the use of recycled plastics in packaging in a safe way, and reducing reliance on virgin materials and promoting a circular economy. So the PPWR introduces several important measures that aim at a transformation of packaging practices across the whole European Union. So first of all, there are the recyclability requirements. By 2030, all packaging must meet minimum recyclability standards. And this makes it mandatory for producers and retailers to ensure that packaging can be reused or properly recycled. Next, the regulation calls for incorporation of recycled materials, especially in plastics. Specific percentages of recycled content will be required, and we will come back on that later. And this will encourage the industries to rely more on secondary raw materials. Then to address waste, there's a strong push for reduction of excess packaging, and this includes eliminating unnecessary layers, reducing empty space, particularly also in e-commerce, and packaging will need to be much better matched to the size of the product that it contains. Another major pillar is the expansion of reusable systems. By 2040, the goal is for 80% of packaging in certain sectors like food and takeaway to be reusable. And this means building systems for collection, for cleaning, and for reuse. And then the regulation also introduces digital product passports. So what is that? That will provide detailed information about each type of packaging, about the materials, the recyclability, and the end-of-life treatment. And this is also to help improve transparency for consumers, for businesses, and for regulators. And lastly, the labeling standards will be harmonized across the European Union. That will be a good thing. Packaging will need clear labels to show how to dispose it, what it is made of, and making proper sorting and recycling much easier for everyone, of course. So about the timeline, the official text of the PPWR was published on January the 22nd in the European Journal, and it entered into force 20 days after publication, so on February 11th. And from there, it will become applicable as of August 12th, 2026, so 18 months later. There are some derogations, for example, for packaging of medicinal products, for contact-sensitive packaging like infant formulas, medical devices also, and foods for special medical purposes, as well as for dangerous goods. And unfortunately, there was no derogation granted for food supplements, despite all the efforts done by EHPM and supported by Be-sup, because there was a lobbying campaign to obtain the same derogation for food supplements, but we haven't been heard. So when we look ahead then, the regulation sets out several major targets. First, by January 2028, that may seem long, but it will be there very quickly, and we are very much waiting for this publication of the design for recycling criteria, because at the moment there are still a lot of uncertainties, and so it's not always very simple to prepare to the PPWR. And along with that, the performance grades for packaging will also be published. Then in 2030, a minimum of recycled content requirements will apply, and this will depend on the material and the packaging. So it will be from 2030 10% for non-PET plastics and 30% for PET plastics. So you will need to have 10 or 30% of recycled material in your packaging. And then by 2040, these thresholds, they rise to 25 for non-PET and 50% for PETs. There will be a derogation, or there is a derogation for compostable packaging. And also by 2030, all packaging on the EU market must meet recyclability performance grades. So at least grade C, or 70% recyclability, will be needed to be allowed on the market. Grades A and B, that's grade A is 95% and B is 80%. They represent higher recyclability, and by 2038 only these grades A or B packaging will still be permitted. And then by 2035, recyclability at scale must be achieved. And that means that packaging must be fully recyclable across the entire European Union. And we don't know the conditions yet, so it's a bit difficult to understand. In green there on the slide, you can find a very interesting link. So if you look for more details or an understandable infographic explanation of the PPWR, of the important targets, of the deadlines, we really advise you to take a look at this document, because it makes things more clear and easier to understand. Then the industry challenges under the PPWR. So the first and big challenge that our sector faces is, of course, the lack of derogation for the food supplements. So that means that if we don't have a derogation, we will need to ensure full packaging compliance by 2030. And that creates a significant pressure on the industry, because our sector uses exactly the same packaging materials as those used by the pharmaceutical sector. But as we only represent a very, very small proportion of these packaging materials, and change is mostly driven by the pharmaceutical industry, so the suppliers are not always ready for that. But let's break down some specific issues for our food supplements industry. So in our sector, we have a lot of use of plastic jars and lids. Their PPWR compliant materials do exist, but the transition will come with important financial and operational burdens. And on top of that, we'll need to carry out new stability tests to guarantee shelf life, and that adds even more costs and complexity. And then the most complicated topic, as you might say, is the blister packaging. There are very limited, there's a very limited offer of compliant blister options. There are some solutions that are beginning to come, but that need to be tested. And the moving to these approved materials will also require drastic investments, including new machines, change to production lines, probably full validation processes. So a really serious challenge for many companies. Besides those two most used packaging materials in our industry, there are also pouches, sachets, and sticks. There, it seems that there are possibilities also of compliant materials as for the plastic jars and lids, but of course with the same challenges as we mentioned above. And then there's also transportation packaging. But this is not sector specific, and there are numerous solutions that already exist. So from a financial perspective, the impacts might be really significant, and companies will face higher costs that are related to new compliance materials, to the upgrading of the machines, navigating the increased operational complexity, and the rigorous validation procedures. So, yeah, just to say, I'm sorry, this is not just a technical transition, but it's really a fundamental shift, and it will affect the entire value chain. And to tackle the most important challenges and to help our members, we created a working group. And this is really a true working group, as the word says. It is not only a discussion forum, it is much more. It is really a collaborative space where we actively share best practices, and the members show a clear willingness to test solutions in practice. And our objectives are very focused. So first of all, we still want to advocate for a longer transition period to give our sector the time it needs to adapt realistically and responsibly. But in the meantime, we do have to be ready by 2030 to be able to switch to compliant materials. And we aim to highlight also the specific impact of the PPWR on the food supplements industry, along with the key challenges we're facing, and also, very importantly, the potential solutions. So we want to assess how this regulation will affect our packaging, the pricing, the machinery needs, and the overall regulatory compliance. And so a key part of our work is also to identify existing solutions that could help us meet all the requirements, to evaluate the costs and benefits of these options. And at the same time, we also highlight where critical gaps still exist, where no solutions or few solutions are currently available, or no appropriate solutions are currently available. And we try to establish realistic timelines for their development. And we also work to engage with solution providers, while also keeping a close eye on innovations in sustainable packaging. So the situation is rather alarming and urgent for the food supplement sector. We are under pressure to be fully compliant by 2030. And we cannot do this alone. And that's why an industry-wide collaboration is essential, both at national and European level, to ensure that we can move forward in a way that is both sustainable, but also feasible. So if you're interested to work with us on these objectives, you are still welcome to join our working group. We already had a first meeting. I will give you a feedback from this one. And the next meeting is planned on the 12th of May. It will be at Factory 40 from 11 till 14 o'clock. So to end this topic, as I said, I will give you some feedback from our first working group meeting and the next steps we have decided commonly. So it was a very constructive first working group meeting, and we've outlined the importance to assess the impact of the PPWR and to map out both the challenges and the possible solutions. And so the first concrete action is a survey that will be sent to all working group and other Be-sup members, to all the Be-sup members. And the goal is to gather anonymized data, of course, to build a clear picture of who is using which materials and packaging types, what are the volumes, which suppliers are informed, are there any existing solutions, and have these solutions already been tested or validated? Are companies already doing stability testing, and what are the results, etc.? We already prepared a questionnaire, and it will be sent normally today for review to the working group. And once validated, it will be sent out to all the members. So I would like to take this opportunity to ask you already your participation on this survey, as you see this is really important to gather global information about the impacts and yes, the assessment of the impacts, I would say, of the PPWR on our sector. These elements we will gather will also help us in our lobbying actions. That's why it is really, really important. And also in our contacts with solution providers. We are in this working group also tackling the specific blister challenge, which is one of the most urgent issues. And as a next step, we've invited also a blister supplier to our next working group meeting of the 12th of May to share insights and potential solutions. And in parallel, we've also contacted key stakeholders at the national level, like Pack for Food, like the Belgian Packaging Institute, CELABOR, etc. And then we also reactivated our lobbying efforts, both nationally and at European level. We have been raising awareness to other European associations during the General Assembly of EHPM. And EHPM will soon also organize a webinar on this topic. They have to confirm a date in June, and we will keep you informed about that. And then for your information, Europen, another European packaging association, has published an interesting survival guide on the PPWR, so you can find it on this slide in the link. And recently, we've also had a very interesting meeting with AMS Europe. That's Advanced Packaging Materials and Solutions, so also an important federation for the packaging sector. This is really an interesting contact on European level because they are also active in the CEN committee, and that's the committee that is working on the design for recycling guidelines that will be published normally in January 2028. And they also confirmed to be willing to talk in the webinar of EHPM. So that's it for the PPWR, and if you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to ask them in the chat.
Thank you very much, Ulrike. And if you are interested to join the PPWR working group, please feel free to contact us. And also, certainly, we count on your help to fill in our survey. It's very important for us. Let's now turn to another topic that is really crucial for our industry and which has recently come under renewed political and institutional pressure, the botanical claims on holds. Well, as many of you know, under the claims legislation, more than 2,000 claims on botanicals were submitted for evaluation, but since 2011, the European Commission has paused these evaluations by EFSA, leaving the botanical claims on hold, like we say. What does that mean in practice? These claims can still be used under national control, provided you can substantiate them with scientific evidence and respect, of course, general principles of truthfulness and non-misleading misleading advertisements. But they are not harmonized across the EU, which creates a lot of legal uncertainty for businesses and confusion for consumers. A significant development came in 2024 with the publication of the European Court of Auditors report on food labeling in the EU. It's not only about botanical claims on old, but also on other problematic points about labeling in the EU. So the report directly criticizes the Commission for failing to solve the issue of the botanical claims. It's not just about botanicals, like I said, but the ECHA points also out several broader weaknesses in the EU's food labeling system, such as a lack of harmonized rules on precautionary allergen labeling, which is very important, no clear framework for vegan or vegetarian labels, also important at this moment, issues with label legibility, and an inconsistent control system across member states. But one of the strongest criticisms in this report was about the continued legal limbo for botanical claims. Here's the most important point for our industry. In its official reply to the ECHA, the European Commission has accepted the recommendation, the first recommendation that you can see on the screen, to find a solution for the botanical claims on holds, and the Commission committed to do so by 2027. This is a first and major breakthrough, I would say. After years of silence, the Commission publicly committed to act. Let's see what she will do and if this deadline will be met, of course. This isn't happening in a vacuum. On the right of my screen, you see the report by the European Parliament. They have also criticized the Commission's inaction on the file of the botanical claims on hold in their recent report evaluating the application of the claims regulation. You know that consumers' organizations have also expressed a lot of criticism about the botanical claims on hold. I refer to the articles of Testachat, Testaankoop, to which Be-sup always reacted, of course. So we are really seeing growing pressure from all sides, both auditors, lawmakers, consumer association, to bring clarity to this situation. We are ready, as a sector, we are ready to contribute to the debate, to the discussions, and we are ready since quite a long time. Many of you will know that or will remember that we developed a tool together with EHPM, Sinadiet, and also a lot of contribution by the Botanicals Working Group of Be-sup that is called the graded approach. You will find in the link, you will find the link to our position paper about the graded approach. This approach would allow for a differentiated evaluation of botanical claims based on the type and the quality of evidence. So in conclusion, the issue of the botanical claims on hold is no longer being ignored, and there is a clear commitment from the European Commission to work on this file. The deadline of 2027 seems quite optimistic to me, but we will see. We will follow this file, and we are ready with our tool. By the way, we presented the tool already to the European Commission and also to the Belgian authorities, and they were quite interested. So let's now move on with the Belgian topics, and let us start with the very important one for us all, the new royal decree that replaces the 3 decrees on nutrients, botanicals, and other substances that enters into force on the 1st February of this year. What does this new royal decree do? Well, it replaces the 3 previous ones that you all very well know. The royal decree of the 30th of May 2021 on nutrients, the one of the 31st of August 2021 on botanicals, and the one of the 29th of August on other substances. According to the Ministry of Health, the goal was to harmonize and clarify the Belgian notification procedures for food supplements and fortified foods, and also to prevent what they call fraudulent uses of acknowledgements of receipts in the notification process. But in practice, we see that the new royal decree introduces a lot of legal issues that seriously threaten the free movement of food supplements and undermine the European legal framework. And that's why we decided to act as Be-sup. After receiving legal advice, we identified different serious legal infringements. First, the Belgian authorities wanted to unilaterally modify the European definition of food supplements, removing the words concentrated source, which is really a key element of the European definition for food supplements. We never understood why they wanted to do so. Secondly, the Belgian authorities granted themselves the right to refuse Belgian notification number. This opens the door to a kind of marketing authorization procedure, something that is explicitly prohibited by the European directive. Third, the Belgian authorities explicitly refuse that Belgian notification numbers can be used for mutual recognition purpose in other European countries. And fourth, new obligations were introduced, such as the compulsory advice from the Superior Health Council, Conseil Supérieur de la Santé, the Hoge Gezondheidsraad, for all food supplements for children, and also the mandatory approval of essential oils in capsules by the Plant Advisory Committee. Commission d'avis des plantes, the Plante Commissie. And other analytical and procedural requirements that go beyond the European law. Together, all these provisions create significant new barriers and infringements, both for Belgian and foreign operators, and they go against the European principle of free movement of goods and mutual recognition, which are clear infringements against the European law. So we contributed, for those of you who followed the legislative procedure to come to the new royal decree. You know that we contributed to the TRIS notification with the support and supported by EHPM, or European Association, and also almost all our sister associations in the other EU member states, SINADIET in France, NPN in the Netherlands, but also even the German, our German sister association contributed, which is quite rare, I must say. And even although the proposal was sent to the Council of State, the Council gave no opinion on the contents, and the royal decree was published anyway on the 22nd of January 2025 and entered into force on the 1st of February 2025. So the Belgian ministry did not take into account neither our comments as industry stakeholder and even not the comments of the European Commission itself. So it's really something, a strange situation, I must say. Faced with this situation, well, we had no other choice than to mandate our lawyers. And our lawyers are Gregory Soro from Thales, and also a specialist lawyer, Maître Fabien Hans, a specialist in administrative law. We asked them to file a request for an annulment before the Council of State, the Raad van State, Conseil d'État, and we did it. We did it within the 60 days. So we did it just after our General Assembly in March, so on time. This is a significant investment for our federation, of course, but it is really essential to protect the interest of our members and the whole industry, I would say. And in a very exceptional and powerful move, FEVIA, the food industry, joined our legal action, which is very rare, and it's particularly a strong signal to defend the interests of companies active in fortified foods too. So what's next? What's the timeline? Yeah, we are before a Belgian court, so it will take a long time, unfortunately. And meanwhile, the new royal decree remains in force. So the first opinion from the auditor of the Court of State is expected in the first half of 2026, and a potential annulment of the royal decree could take place in the second half of 2026. So we will have to continue to live with the new royal decree for more than 1 year, we fear. Meantime, we will of course continue to support our members in navigating the new royal decree. Very important. Yeah, maybe something also important to add. We are not alone in this annulment demand. We were joined by 9 Be-sup members, so by 9 companies that decided to join us, which is really, really great and a strong signal. Let's now look at a file on the obligation to use German on labels when your products are sold in the German-speaking region of Belgium. So how should you prepare for the 1st of January 2026? As you know, according to the law of 24 January 1977, the law on the use of languages, all mandatory label information must be provided in at least the language of the region where the product is sold. So that means Dutch, at least Dutch in Flanders, at least French in Wallonia, French and Dutch in Brussels, and crucially German when products are sold in the German-speaking community, which includes the 9 municipalities that you can see in green on my screen. So Eupen, Kelmis, Lonsen, Raren, Amel, Bullingen, Bourg-Roylands, Butgenbach, and St. Vith. A very important reminder. However, for years there was a gap in the legislation, and due to an error during the transposition of the European FIC regulation, the Food Information to Consumers regulation, which made enforcement impossible. So we often receive the question, why did I never receive a fine by AFSCA FAVV before? Well, because of that gap, the law could not be enforced. That loophole was closed by a correction law on the 22nd of September 2022. And the language requirement is now fully in force again. Thanks to the joint advocacy efforts, and we really have to thank also FEVIA, the food industry, and Comeos, the supermarkets, and ourselves, of course, we were able to obtain a 2-year-long tolerance period. This is really long in such a file, because it's the use of languages is very sensitive political topic in Belgium, and so it's a tolerance period. So it's not a formal transition period. So this means that controls are possible, but no fines will be issued for now. very important. So the tolerance period will end on the 31st of December 2025. So from the 1st of January 2026, the AFSCA FAVV will start enforcing the rules. And labels for products placed on the market in the German-speaking region, so the 9 municipalities, will need to include German for all mandatory information or risk enforcement actions. Within our working group, we have been discussing this file a lot, and also some practical solutions. One of the solutions that is accepted by the authorities are peel-off labels. I think that everybody knows peel-off labels. So they are accepted by the Ministry of Health, but they are quite expensive and also not very sustainable. They could give a problem and are maybe might not be compatible with the PPWR requirements. So this is really a problem that we should also keep in mind. QR codes. Well, the cabinet of Minister Clarenval issued a legal advice that they are not a legal solution according to the legal service, to its legal services. Some members also work with an other packaging containing all the mandatory information. And some members are even speaking of not selling in the 9 municipalities of the German-speaking part of Belgium anymore. Many of you have asked us if they can use QR codes to link the German information. Well, unfortunately, the legal services of Minister Clarenval's cabinet have confirmed that our QR codes are not currently accepted as a legal solution, but there is some hope, and we continue our advocacy, of course. The new Arizona government might be more open to finding flexible modern solutions. So we will continue to advocate for the acceptance of QR codes, especially because we are really well aware of the problem for very small packaging where space is a real challenge for you. So be prepared. So, well, let me be clear, this is a sensitive file, also a political file, the use of languages in Belgium. And we really ask our members to comply with the law by the end of 2025 to avoid any bad surprises in 2026. At Be-sup, we have been following this file since 2021. So discussing this file since 2021, so it's really exceptional that we obtained 2 years of tolerance periods. There will be, well, we expect no recalls for non-compliance since there is no food safety issue, of course. A recall is only justified when there is a food safety issue, but withdrawals from the markets may happen. So also our advice, it's always interesting to show your goodwill, to demonstrate your goodwill to FAVV AFSCA if you are controlled by them after the 1st of January next year. And for example, by showing them that your new labels in development will be compliant. So to recap this file, so the use of German is a legal obligation when selling in the German-speaking region. Thanks to our joint efforts, we were able to obtain a 2-year-long tolerance period. The tolerance period will end on the 31st of December 2025. And so from the 1st of January 2026, the rules will be enforced. Peel-off labels are accepted. QR codes are not yet, but we will continue to advocate for practical and realistic solutions, especially taking into account the small packaging of our members. Over to Linda for some news from the Plantenadviescommissie, Commission d'avis des plantes.
Yes, thank you, Valerie. Okay, so just a quick overview of what happens in the meanwhile in the Plant Commission, as we call it. So during this year, the work started last year. The Commission, a sub-working group, in fact, of the Commission, is preparing a manual for healthcare professionals with information on interactions, contraindications, warnings, on the 115 plants for which our royal decree mentions consult your physician or your pharmacist. The Commission has the intention to publish this on the website of the Federal Public Service, but it is still uncertain when exactly this will happen, because this sub-working group, well, still has, sorry, I'm going back to the slides, sorry. The Commission still has to do a lot of work. Why does the Plant Commission start this work? Because they received many questions from mainly pharmacists who said, okay, our education on food supplements with botanicals is in fact has been incomplete, and often we do not know what to respond when customers ask specific questions. So we hope, we haven't seen yet the first results of this sub-working group, but we hope that it will be a workable document that will be publicly available on the website of the Federal Public Service. There have also been several cases of mutual recognition requests for supplements with botanicals. During this year, we had the first report on which mutual recognition dossiers were received by the Federal Public Service. Last year, in fact, oh, sorry, there is something happening with the slides. I'm back on the right slides. So this was an overview we received by the end of last year, I think. So in total, 12 requests were received, 11 by one single company. So 8 were accepted, 3 were refused. In which case can a national authority refuse a mutual recognition request when there is a public health risk? In this case, it was for exceeding maximum limits of active substances, maximum limits that had been decided by the Plant Commission. At that moment of reporting, one dossier was still pending. When the Federal Public Service does not see an issue with a dossier, it is immediately accepted. And of the 12 dossiers, 9 dossiers in total were first referred to the Plant Commission. This is information that we have already transferred through our working groups. When your product has to be evaluated by the Plant Commission, make sure that your dossier is complete. Be aware also that the experts in the Commission can require extra data on top of the information that you provided. Another reason why the transit times at the Plant Commission can be quite long is that the company is only notified of the decision of the Plant Commission after the approval of the meeting PV. Then there has been an issue with Hypericum perforatum, St. John's wort. An ingredient that is still used in food supplements in several European countries. Belgium had in its royal decree already a maximum for hypericin of 700 micrograms per day. After, on the request, in fact, of Testachat, that had undertaken a study of Hypericum supplements on the Belgian markets, they found that several supplements contained quite a high amount of hyperforin. Testasha had said, okay, but EMA, the European Medicines Agency, puts a maximum, sees 1 milligram per day as the dose at which interaction with medicines can occur. So in food supplements, they asked the amount should be below 1 milligram. So at a meeting of the Plant Commission last year, the experts decided to put a maximum of 800 micrograms per day for hyperforin. They had already approved of this decision, but I'm a member of the Commission since last year, since 2024. I said, okay, but something is very wrong with this advice of the Belgian Plant Commission. Because the ratio between hyperforin and hypericin would be completely skewed by this advice. If you have a maximum of 800 micrograms of hyperforin and 700 micrograms hypericin, in that case, this does not occur in the natural amounts in St. John's wort or in the preparations that are made on the basis of St. John's wort. In general, the ratio between hypericin and hyperforin is contained. So normally the ratio between hyperforin and hypericin in St. John's wort is at least 5. In my report, I enumerated the different St. John's wort extracts and preparations that are used in food supplements. Some of them are standardized on hypericin alone. Others are standardized on hyperforin. Some are standardized on both active substances. And there are, of course, also preparations that are used in food supplements that are based on the preparations mentioned in the EMA and ESCOP monographies, for example. But all these preparations from St. John's wort have a ratio of hyperforin to hypericin that exceeds 5. So in most it's even 10 or more. So I objected to the advice. I drew a report. I presented this report to the Commission. The advice was ready for publication by the end of last year, but the publication has been put on hold. At the next meeting of the Plant Commission, which is next Tuesday, the expert will again discuss this content, the advice, the contents of the advice, and I hope to have some good news afterwards, and I hope that we will have been capable of the annulment of the advice. This is to be followed. I'm giving the word back to Ulrike at this moment.
Thank you, Linda. Yes, we are continuing with a topic on the indication of price per unit for food supplements. So the indication of price per unit is in fact a legal obligation, and it was highlighted recently, some months ago, when we heard of an inspection case from one of our Be-sup members. And so far, it is the only reported case, but it is important for you to know about it. The Belgian Ministry of Economy conducted a control of the company's website, and they flagged an infringement of the law. What was the reason? Well, the website didn't display the price per kilo for food supplements. That might sound a little bit strange, but it is a requirement based on the law, the Royal Decree of June 30, 1996, and specifically Article 6, which states that any seller who offers products for sale to the consumer must, in addition to the sale price, indicate the unit price. And this applies to both sales in shops and online sales to consumers. So the core issue here is that food supplements, they are legally classified as food, and there is currently no derogation for this category under the Royal Decree. And the price per unit, as defined in the Royal Decree, is the price per kilo. But in practice, that doesn't make sense at all, because a food supplement typically weighs just a few grams, so indicating a price per kilo creates misleading or even absurd figures that offer no useful information to the consumer. So to give you an example, when we do a little calculation, a box of 90 capsules of 450 milligram each costs 14 euro. Well, then the price per kilo would be 988 euros per kilo. So that's really absurd. And this case highlights the need to revisit the current rules, or at least push for a specific derogation for food supplements. The intention behind the law, transparency for consumers, is understandable, but in this context, it is really not useful, and it's even counterproductive. So it was time for Be-sup to set up an action plan to address this situation and to push for a fair solution for our sector. And we have had meetings with different stakeholders to know their position and to have their support. We had a meeting with BeCom, that's the Belgian e-commerce association, who were ready to give their support. Also with Comeos, that's the Belgian Federation for Commerce and Services. They also represent the supermarkets, so they are really important. And they were very supportive. They shared our position. They also defended it in their meetings with the Ministry of Economy. So this was a really useful contact. And then APB, the Pharmacist Association, because it's also an obligation in the shops. So we thought, okay, we are going to contact APB, but they told us they had not been confronted yet to this problem in pharmacy. So then Be-sup has formally contacted the Ministry of Economy. We wrote a letter, and we had the support of Comeos on this. And we proposed a derogation for the price per kilogram rule for food supplements. We used some arguments based on current industry practices, the fact that supplements are typically sold in very small quantities, which makes the kilogram reference unhelpful and misleading for consumers. And we referred to Article 1 of the Royal Decree, which is the legal basis to ask this derogation, because it states that for the application of this decree, unit price means price for 1 kilogram, as I said, of the product. And then after obtaining the opinion of the Consumer Affairs Council, the ministers responsible for consumer protection may impose a reference to another single quantity where this is used on a widespread and regular basis for the marketing of specific products. So this gives us a legal basis to request an alternative unit of measurement that better reflects how supplements are actually marketed and sold. The situation is also evolving politically, because we have a federal government in the meantime, and it is David Clarenval from MR that is the new Minister of Economy. And after discussions with with the Ministry of Economy. We've been informed that they are currently examining whether they can submit the file to the Consumer Affairs Council for formal advice. And this would really be a crucial next step forward to a potential derogation. For now, and we checked with them again this week, but there is no answer yet. So it's to be continued, and we will keep you informed on that. And then our last topic is to inform you about an agreement we were able to make with APB about C&K codes for food supplements. So APB, the Pharmacy Association, who are in charge of the C&K codes. First, I think you all know it, but some general information about C&K codes. They are the national identification codes that are used in Belgium. They are not legally mandatory, but they are essential if you want your products to be sold in pharmacies or online pharmacies. So in practice, you won't get access to those channels without a C&K code. The C&K code, it's important to know that the database is updated twice a month, the 1st and the 15th of each month. And changes need to be communicated to APB about 2 weeks ahead of these updates. To do so, you can use the C&K edit tool. You have the link there on the slides. So that's an edit tool on the C&K platform of the APB website, where you can modify a limited set of data related to your product. So all the things you can change without having to ask a new C&K code. The process is free, but it does require signing a contract with APB and having a contact person. But that's not a big deal. It's really easy to do. And then to request a C&K code, you can also do it online via the same C&K platform. So it's the same link. You have access to the edit tool and the creation tool, and also a brochure with information. So when does a new C&K code? Oh yes, and I forgot to mention that if you have any questions, you can send an email to that email address. They are very willing to help. So when does a new C&K code have to be requested? There are specific situations, and you can find them in the brochure on their platform. And these situations include a change of the product name, a change of the pharmaceutical form, or any significant change in the product's presentation, a qualitative or quantitative change in the active ingredients, a qualitative change in the excipients, and finally, a change in the packaging content, whether it is weight, volume, or the number of units. And then on the other hand, there is no need for a new C&K code in the following cases: if the price changes, if there's a change in VAT rates, a change in reimbursement conditions, but that's more for the medicines, or if there's a change in distributor or license holder. That said, even in those cases where a new C&K isn't required, you still need to notify APB. So you can change it online, of course, and then it will be approved, or you can do it by email. This really ensures that all the changes can be communicated to the users in time and in an accurate way. So what did Be-sup do? We received some feedback from our members. They told us that even for really minor changes, a new C&K code was mandatory, and that these changes they sometimes cause commercial problems, more particularly in e-commerce. So we started discussions with APB on these rules for food supplements. And Be-sup proposed a more practical approach for food supplements, in line, in fact, with the existing rules that are agreed with FOD SPF for notification numbers. So it is mentioned in green on the slide if the composition changes qualitatively or quantitatively, the product will also be considered a new product. So in that case, a new notification number, except in cases where the change concerns additives, flavors, or chemical forms of nutrients. So after a constructive dialogue and after providing some concrete examples to APB, they agreed with this logic and they accepted the following exception for food supplements that is in line with the above mentioned agreement with FOD-SPF. So if the change in composition is limited to a modification of additives, aromas, or chemical forms of nutrients, and if this change, there's a condition, if this change is not accompanied by significant external changes, such as a color change of the capsules, or a change in the commercial and marketing related positioning of the product. For instance, if a product becomes vegan because of this change, then a C&K code can be retained. So we have the same rules with some conditions, and those conditions were important for APB because there are some changes where it is important that the pharmacist is well informed. If, like we mentioned, if there's a change of color or compliance to vegan users, it is really important for them to know so, and then they would like to change the C&K code anyway. So that said, this APB, they emphasize that traceability remains essential. And so in specific cases, well, they reserve the right not to apply this exception if they feel that, that it could be compromised. Then another interesting thing to know is that you have the possibility also in the APB database to link an old product to a new product via its C&K code. This is really a useful functionality that maybe not everyone may be aware of, but when you are creating a new product, you have the option to link it to the C&K code of an old product. And this creates a clear indication that a new product is in fact a replacement for the old one, and it helps ensure traceability and transparency. We've included the example here we received from APB. It's for a cosmetic product, but here you can see how it is mentioned in their database. The product is replaced by, and then the other products. And in pharmacy, in practice, when a pharmacist looks on his computer for the old product, he or she will get a message saying that this product is replaced by a new one. So this is important or interesting to do so in the database if you like to. And since the online pharmacies, they also work with the APB database, they could also make use of this functionality for e-commerce. And then a really last topic, nothing to do with the C&K codes themselves, but also an APB topic. As of the 1st of September of this year, APB will no longer include public prices in its database for pharmacies for products without regulated prices. So, as you know, medicines, whether it's prescription medicines or OTC medicines, the prices are regulated. So this doesn't concern those prices, but it concerns cosmetics and food supplements, for instance. So this means that the pharmacist will no longer receive target prices or indicative public prices as shared by companies for cosmetics and food supplements. And those from that point on, only the ex-factory price, also known as the ex-works price, will be included in the database. Why this change? Because using terms like recommended prices, guide prices, target prices, indicative public prices, or minimum prices, they may be considered anti-competitive, either by their intent or their effects. And APB told us that in response, the pharmacy software providers, the wholesalers, and the ordering platforms are working on systems to electronically exchange individual pharmacist purchase prices. So ultimately, it will be up to each pharmacist to set their own selling price, and they will do it depending on the margin they decide to apply. So that was it for the topics. If you still have any questions, don't hesitate to share them in the chat, and thank you for your attention.
So I hope you found this session interesting, and we wish you a very nice afternoon. And we look forward to welcome you and to seeing you at Vita Foods or at another Be-sup event.